You know, on OTB we've recently covered many stories, but certainly some of them in dark days in sports for On The Ball Report. Of course, I'm referring to drugs and the people behind it. Enhancing drugs, that is. But a story I covered in 2015 was never going away. When the most powerful people in football will face corruption charges. Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter and former French international played for Juventus FC and became the UEFA President Michel Platini. They're recently appearing in court June the 8th in Switzerland on corruption charges, which relates to monies given by FIFA's former president Sepp Blatter of £1.6 million to Michel Platini in 2011. And what was that for? Advisory work requested by Platini. But it wasn't until 2015 FIFA's world governing body was under accusations of widespread corruption. At this time in 2015, I was covering the story for TV and radio for the International Sports Report, when Toronto CTV, a big station, television station, news and sports, interviewed me regarding Sepp Blatter and the FBI investigations.
Peter Irvin is the co-host of International Sports Report on TSN 1050 Radio. He joins us now in our studio. Good to see you, Peter.
Thank you.
Are you a fan of Sepp Blatter? You've met him a few times. You've interviewed him a couple times.
I became a non-fan as soon as I walked in to interview him with the television crew. He's very arrogant, but don't take it away from him, Dan. He's a very smart guy. Keeps the chips to himself, and he rules very, very heavy-handed.
Is he a micromanager?
I would think so, yes. There's no excuse that he didn't know about the 14 that have been, let's say, not arrested, but indicted through the FBI. So we're going to see what happens. But somewhere along the line, there's going to be a squealer, a rat that said, yeah, it did happen.
And somebody may make a deal.
I'm sure. Yeah. $150 million over 20 years and you don't know? I mean, if that happened in the real world of business, I'm sure that the CEO and the president and the vice president all will be fired.
There's been so many complaints about FIFA and their shady dealings for decades. I mean, if you followed soccer for decades, you've been hearing this for decades. And yet, because it is not a for-profit business, there are so few levers that anybody can get at FIFA.
Absolutely. And when you look at it, I mean, the power, the billions and billions of dollars. I mean, the Americans look at their sports and say, we're rich and this is how it's done in the league. But when you look at FIFA, they're light years ahead of anybody there. And Blatter is the only guy that should actually roll. I am shocked that he's re-elected.
Yeah, well, it was expected, right?
Well, yes, and because this is where the problem is very quickly, is the Asian and African markets have the votes. So each federation has a vote, and I'm sure that Blatter's, and it's only my opinion, that Blatter's henchmen have been around and said, hey, we're going to give you some more money to develop the sport. Vote.
Well, and also it was alleged yesterday by more than one person that it serves a lot of interest to have somebody who's malleable at the helm, because that's a person you can use. All you need is money.
Absolutely. And obviously money does corrupt. And of course, when you are in the likes of Blatter, and I met him a couple of times when he came over to Canada, I was shocked at the first time. And then I had the opportunity to interview Michel Platini, who is the president of UEFA right now. And what came out of actually Platini, when I said to him, you've finished your career, what are you going to do now? And I said to him, how about being the president of FIFA? And he just leant over in a heavy French accent and he says, no comment. Now, of course, the heat was on FIFA. FIFA's Ethics Committee banned FIFA's president, Sepp Blatter, and UEFA President Michel Platini from football. If Blatter and Platini are found guilty of fraud, embezzlement and forgery, could receive heavy fines and jail for time. Well, we'll keep you posted on this ongoing story. Again, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Peter Irvin, for the love of the game, covering Philippine football and international news. This has been brought to you by Sun Sports and Bad Beat Sportswear. Share, like, subscribe and ring the bell for news, interviews, breaking stories. Thanks for watching On The Ball Report.